What up, what up, what up? Back at it again. JUCO Hoops Insider, Friday holiday edition. Can't wait for the show today. We're going to get to our special guest. BG, what up, my man?
What's going on?
Ready to do it, man. So we're going to get straight to it and bring EP from Oklahoma State in the studio and talk some hoops. EP, what up, man?
What's up, man? What's up, guys?
Good to have you on, man. Good to have you on.
Great to be on, man. Great to be on. It's been a minute since I've seen either of you guys. I'm used to seeing you guys on the road somewhere, but that hasn't happened lately. So it's good to see you.
Life's a little different right now for all of us, man.
No question.
Appreciate you showing some JUCO love, man. Tell people your JUCO story real quick before we kind of get started, so they know where you come from.
Yeah, so I've been at a few junior colleges. I got my start as a GA at Kansas State, and then after that, kind of had a great conversation with Frank Martin. Frank Martin's like family to me. He was a big mentor. So my last conversation with him after being a GA, I had dinner with him, and he said, "Eric, you're a lot like me. You don't have this illustrious career, to lean on. You weren't an All-American, playing at a big time place. You need to build relationships. You can stay here on staff, but in some kind of support role. But if you want to coach, you got to get out there and coach." And so that's what I did. So I went back to Florida, and my first year I coached I was a volunteer assistant at Palm Beach Community College. That one didn't even make my resume just because they weren't paying me anything. But I was also on the side, I was coaching AAU. I coached for the Florida Rams on the Adidas circuit. And from there, I went to Lebec Community College in Parsons, Kansas. Probably never heard of it. I didn't until I got there, and spent a year at Lebec. I was an assistant coach there with a new staff, and on the side, I continued to coach AAU. I coached with Casey Run GMC, which was an awesome experience. Doing both of those 2 years was a really cool experience. And then from there, I got the opportunity to work at Northwest Florida for Steve Forbes, and worked with Jason Shea as well, which was awesome. And then I got my opportunity in Division I at SFA for a couple years, bounced around a couple Division Is, and then had my opportunity to be a head coach at Daytona State 3 years ago now. So and spent 1 year there, and then had a great opportunity to go work with Dusty May and a great staff at FAU for a year. So I've done my fair share of bouncing around, but overall Palm Beach, Northwest Florida, Daytona, and then Lebec, and they were all awesome experiences. They've prepared me for where I'm at now, and I'm thankful for every single one of them. There were probably some stressful times during those times, but I really wouldn't have it any other way, man. Perspective is an amazing thing.
Yeah, how does the JUCO part play into now? I'll let BG take the next one. How does JUCO play into what you do now at the highest level?
Man, honestly, it prepares you to be able to wear so many different hats. You know what I mean? Like, and when you're at a place like Lebec or you're at Daytona and you're trying to, you're academic advising, you're, practice planning, you're getting guys shots, you're doing laundry, you're wearing so many different hats. And then on top of it, the from a junior college, from a pure basketball standpoint, like, one, you get to coach and really like coach guys. And then two, you have to recruit at such a higher level, just because you're signing 8-9 kids every year, like sometimes more, so it was funny. The first time I got to Division I at Stephen F. Austin, I was so programmed that we needed to, and usually, it's one assistant and the head coach. Maybe you have a volunteer assistant as a second guy in JUCO. Well, I get to Stephen F. Austin, great job, Brad Underwood, great coach. I'm working with two great assistants, Stephen Gentry and Mike Boynton, and I get there, and we just need like 3 or 4 scholarships that year, and we recruit a couple guys, and we get a couple commitments early. And then I started looking around. I'm like, oh, well, Mike's recruiting kids, and so is Gentry. I was like, this is pretty nice. Like, we already got a couple commitments. That's it. So there isn't like that mad dash of like, oh, I got to sign 9 or 10 guys. So you almost had some pressure relief when you got to Division I, where you're like, okay, we got some help, and it's a little bit easier, to be honest, in some ways.
Right. People would never even believe that either, because I think there was one year where I was at Collin County. We signed 8, and then I went to work for Ross Hodge at Paris, and we had to sign like 11. Signed like 20 kids in one off season between 2 jobs. But BG, I'll let you take the next one.
So would you say that Oklahoma State has been a little different than junior college, or are they basically the same? Is that what was that, I guess, experience like when you'd been to Division I, you'd been to junior college, you've been to kind of all these levels, and then all of a sudden you're playing at the highest level and you're experiencing that. I guess for you as a coach, kind of, what are some things that maybe you miss about junior college?
Man, the thing I miss most about junior college, I mean, there's a couple things, and people think I'm crazy. I still, obviously I recruit junior college, but most importantly, I have relationships with junior college coaches, and I'll tell Hank this once in a while at Indian Hills, or one of those guys. I'll see him at a jamboree, at a JUCO jamboree, and I'm just like, man, I miss this. And they're just like, you're such a liar. And I'm like, no, I really miss, I miss the camaraderie of just having, this is all great, man. It's great. Like, we have unbelievable resources here. We have a great staff. We have everything you can need. But there's something about piling into a van and having you, maybe one assistant, and your 12 guys, and you guys, like, there's just so much. There's a little bit more of a connectedness,
right?
Where and honestly, those guys have, not that our guys don't, but there's a different level of that chip on their shoulder, man. Like,
for sure,
they're so thankful for every little thing, and like their backgrounds, where they've come from, the things that they're trying to overcome. It kind of speaks to a lot of coaches that are doing just such great work at that level, and that I appreciated, just because it was about more than basketball, man. You were really, really changing lives, and we all are trying to change lives, but there was just a little bit more of a deeper dive into it at that level, where you're really trying to help these guys.
I mean, there's definitely like beauty in the struggle, I think. And not that people want to struggle, not that people are like, doing it on purpose, but it just is what it is. There was something last night. I didn't get to watch the video, but they were interviewing Coach Cal, I think. And I don't know if you saw this, something about, what did he say? Something about like, oh my God, we had to take a 6-hour bus ride.
Yeah, it was something about, I think they were busing Atlanta. And
yeah, he was like, the 6-hour bus ride. And
he thought it was 4 and it was really 6. And
all the JUCO coaches are like, what?
Yeah, no, I guess they haven't hopped on that bus and driven from East Kansas to South Kansas to Western Kansas, or
Hank quoted something, because they went from Ottumwa to like 3 different places on down to Mississippi and then back, and he's like, well, I guess Coach Cal hasn't taken the Ottumwa to whatever route via bus.
Right. Yeah, there hasn't been those were the first introductions I got when I was in Southeast Kansas. We played Dodge City, and it's about a 4 or 5 hour drive from Parsons, Kansas to Dodge City. And we get done with the game. We felt like we got robbed a little bit. We played really well and lost. And we're getting on the bus at like 9:30, and we're driving 2 vans. So we get in that van, and it's like estimated time of arrival, like 2 a.m. And we're not hopping on a charter bus where I could just, where we could watch Netflix for 5 hours and then just get up, and I'm driving that thing. So it's a little bit different.
But I mean, it's one of those things where, now, and even a lot of places, when it's game time and you're on the road and you head to the airport and you get on the charter flight, or just if you're at a different level, you're not chartering, and you just kind of go through the motions and you do your thing. It's business. It's very business-like. It's, you're going on a business trip and you're doing all that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm sure you do miss out on a lot of what happens on those 12-hour bus trips, the like you said, the camaraderie and the things that you learn about each other that just don't come up in a normal day, unless you literally have nothing else to do because you're in the middle of nowhere and there's a blizzard outside or something.
Yeah. No, like it's a lot more simple in those situations where, you know, it's not you're not complicating things with the politics of anything of, you know, like a higher level. I mean, it's literally just about you, some guys trying to get them right academically, trying to help them grow, trying to help them get to the next place in their life. It's almost like like I look back at it like, man, that was like a simpler time. It wasn't an easier time by any means, but it was just, you know, like it was a little bit more pure level, you know what I mean?
We were talking to, I think it was the Kingsville coach, and he said, you know, he thinks junior college is the purest form of sport, really, you know, because it's just figure it out, right? Like you got a game, you got to win, and you're here, figure it out. Like there's no hard and fast path to how to do things. You know, you're going to have kids that you're chasing for academics, or you're going to have this, or you're going to have that. You just got to figure it out, right? And you got to kind of figure it out on your own, because there's not 20 people that you can call and say, okay, put the machine into motion to get done whatever it is that we need to get done. Like, you know, unfortunately now everybody's got 50 different schedules, and I'm sure a whiteboard with 1,000 team names on it, trying to figure out where do we go, what do we do if we get a game canceled. And it's like, I mean, when we kick off at the end of January here with JUCO and games start getting canceled, that's going to look like chaos because these poor coaches are going to be scheduling all that stuff themselves. And
but you know what? To JUCO guys' credit, like they're giving Division I's credit for you know, turnaround and scheduling games like on a whim. Like JUCO guys are going to be pros at that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like we're going to, you know, Hank's going to call somebody or you know, like, hey, you guys want to play? And you know, Brandon, to speak to the figure it out method, like that's probably the thing that from a junior college standpoint prepares you the most for this level, at least prepared me. You know, just an ability to figure things out, like especially as a JUCO assistant, like your head coach is dealing with so much stuff. Like you can't bring everything to him. Like you have to put out some fires, you know, without bringing every single thing to him. And you know, that was when I got to Northwest Florida, that was one of Forbes, you know, great, you know, I learned a lot from him, but that was one of the things where, you know, handle this stuff. Like I don't need to hear about every single thing. Cause one thing that Forbes is elite at, to me, he's not a micromanager. Like he, you know, he wants you, you know, he's going to empower you to do the work, but you know, just figure it out. Like I don't need to hear about every single problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's been a really beneficial at that level.
Yeah, I mean, he only has time to hear about the fires that are going to burn down the building, right? Like all the other things that go on that, you know, just out of sight, out of mind, and he knows they're happening. He just can't hear about them because he's got 1,000 other things to do. And that's, you know, that's where, yeah, as a junior college assistant, when you really, I think, shine and you're able to make it so that coach doesn't hear about that. Hank and I talk about that all the time. Like when he was coaching for Steve Green, and is like, you know, he would say that, well, this was happening. We couldn't find this player. This player decided he wanted to go home and didn't tell anybody. This was going on, and Steve didn't hear about any of it and was ready to coach on game day. And you show up and it's like nothing happened. Right. Like that means you did your job.
Exactly. No question.
EP, quick question. Tell us some funny stories about JUCO, man. We always talk about like the grind and all that. Talk about the funny stories, man, because I think that's some of the best parts about it, is because you are so close and you are so connected. You get way closer with your players and you have way more entertaining stories most of the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I feel like in JUCO there's so many like funny stories that, like, if you've been in JUCO, you don't even really process like that it's an actual funny story. Like it's just like kind of common, like, you know, first of all, like in JUCO, you can't take anything for granted that they're going to know, you know, all these, you know, specific things of like how we operate or how you want a program to operate, because you're getting guys from such a wide variety of backgrounds. I'll say, you know, one story, and I don't know how funny it is, but it kind of connected to where I'm at now, because Bryce Williams, who's a guard for us, he actually played for me at Daytona as a freshman. He transferred from Ole Miss last year here, and he's having a, you know, good start to the year for us. But Bryce is a different dude. He's JUCO all the way. You know, great kid, hard worker, but just doesn't know what he doesn't know. So like we're I was telling Coach Mike this the other day about Bryce, and so we're getting ready for our first game at Daytona, and it's like a Wednesday night game against somebody, and it's Tuesday, like the day before the game, and he comes into my office like probably an hour before practice. He probably just got out of class, I guess, and he's like, Coach, he's like, are we practicing today? And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't we be practicing today? And he's just like, well, it's the day before the game. Like, I thought we were, like, so apparently, like, he's not used to practicing the day before the game. Like that's like a resting day. And it kind of like, and again, it's not the funniest thing, but it's like your typical junior college thing where you'll just hear stuff like that on a daily basis, where it's just like, it's like, man, I don't know where you were at before, but yeah, we practiced the day before. We even practiced a little bit the day of a game. But it's awesome to see kind of where he's come from, and all the way to this point where he's a senior at a Big 12 school making an impact. But just stuff like that, man. Like, they're like just guys that they don't know what they don't know, and but there's tons of stories of I
don't know if we'll have time to get to this one. We got a question for you though, Coach Jenkins. He said, "What's your best Kyle Church story ever?"
Oh man, I think the only thing that I have more stories of besides junior college stories is Kyle Church stories.
You have to tell people who Kyle Church is for those that don't know.
So Kyle's an assistant at Florida Atlantic. I worked with him 2 years ago now. At Florida Atlantic, they got a great staff. Todd, who replaced me, and Akeem, and then obviously Dusty does an unbelievable job. He's one of the best I've ever worked for. Learned a ton from him. I'll be honest, like, it's not the funniest Church story, but like the best one, and I think it's something that I know I've mentioned this to you, Brian, in the past, like, and I try to tell this to guys in junior college and at pretty much at any level, like. So I met Kyle when he was an assistant at Chipola, and I was an assistant at Northwest Florida. And for those of you that don't know, those are like the two rivals in the Panhandle, two of the best junior colleges in the country. And we were both rolling at that time. They had Sam Cassell Jr., a bunch of guys. We had Chris Jones and Elgin Cook. Usually you'd be really competitive, and we were competitive, but you would, I don't know how friendly you'd be with those guys down the road. And but me and Kyle built like a really good, a respectful, competitive, like, friendship relationship, and it kind of bled over into when he eventually moved on to Louisiana Tech and I moved on to Stephen F. Austin, and moving forward 5 years, I'm at Daytona as the head coach. Kyle's the ops guy at Florida. Dusty's the assistant at Florida. Dusty gets the Florida Atlantic job, and because of my relationship with Kyle, I had a relationship with Dusty, but I think Kyle helped, kind of vouch for me in that regard. And I think that was really important. I've never asked Dusty to this day how important that was, but it speaks to the kind of person Kyle was, or is, excuse me, and our relationship. That's why I try to tell guys, like, especially young guys that are like really passionate. It's like, that's great, man. But like, when I talk about developing relationships, it can't be just relationships with guys you're recruiting or guys, like, you have no idea who may help you 5 years down the road. Like, right. If I was at Northwest Florida and I was just like, man, I'm not messing with that dude, I'm not talking to him at all, just because we went heads up recruiting a couple times, like, he's probably not helping me with that job 5 years from now.
Right.
So, it's really important to have perspective. And that's, I'm forever thankful for that, because that, as much as I love JUCO, that was a great opportunity for me to get back in Division I.
For sure. Talking about Division I, man, talk about Oklahoma State. Obviously, you coach one of the best players in the country, the projected #1 pick. And then there's a little bit of controversy around Oklahoma State being able to play in the tournament, not playing the tournament. Speak on any of that you feel comfortable sharing with the people.
Yeah. So I'll address the NCAA deal before I talk about Cade, and it's probably like the biggest misconception that, like, a lot of, we've been trying to fight that a lot of people think we can't play in the postseason this year. We've appealed. I'm not going to speak to a lot of, I'm not going to speak to details, but we've appealed that that NCAA ruling. So as of right now, there's a stay on that ruling. So if the NCAA tournament started tomorrow and we had the resume, we can play in the NCAA tournament. So we'll see as that appeal kind of goes on, like what happens. But as of today, we don't talk about it around here because we're planning on playing in the NCAA tournament. That's the expectation here. It's always been here at this kind of program, and so that's kind of where it is right now. We're just kind of focused on every day, just trying to get these guys better and trying to play as many games as we can in this environment. So as far as Cade goes, yeah, man. I mean, he's a really good player, but he's an even better person when it comes to just his competitive drive. Like I've had a lot of people ask me about him, like I just don't view him in any other way. I mean, he's obviously he's a really good player, but the thing I love most about him is how competitive he is and how smart he is. He really, like, people, I'm sure there's a lot of coaches out there, like, all he cares about is winning. Like no, all this dude cares about is winning. Like, he doesn't care about his numbers. He doesn't care about anything else. And to our staff's credit and to our program's credit and his teammates, he didn't get treated any differently. And he doesn't want to be treated any differently, which gives him a chance to have success further, past here. But it's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun to coach a talent like that. It's a lot of fun to coach a talent like that wants to be coached. Right. Which, you don't always see with those top guys, I'd assume. I mean, he's obviously the highest rated guy I've ever coached, but he comes in and watches film, he texts me, texts the staff, like, wants to get better. He wants to be coached. He wants to be competitive. We lost a game the other day and he was as competitive as he's ever been the next day of practice. And that kind of speaks to how he's wired. And I think it speaks to why he's going to be a really good player, for years and years. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's the defining mark between success and failure once you get to that next level, because the difference between success and failure is itty bitty, right? And it generally doesn't have a lot to do with whether the ball goes through the hoop, because you wouldn't be there in the first place if you can't. Right. But it's those things that you can't teach a guy. You can't teach a guy to be competitive. You can't teach a guy to give a crap, right? Like, when you lose a game and he's so fired up that he has his best practice the next day and he wants to watch film and he wants to put in extra work and all that kind of stuff. That's what makes you a pro as opposed to a, hey, we'll see you in wherever you're headed next pro.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I mean, he's just wired. It's easy for guys, the more talented they are, to maybe look for outs in certain things. Like, he just
can rely on their natural ability.
Right. And he's just not wired that way, which really gives him a chance. And I'm thankful for it too, just because there are things that he's advanced on just on the court, not just from a skill perspective, but from a mind perspective, that, like, I'm learning from him every day, where I'm like, right. Like, man, he's advanced in this way, but how can I help him? Like, I'm trying to, and every guy, whether you're in junior college or Division I, you're coaching every guy, differently. You want to coach them all as hard as you can, but every guy, has a different level of understanding and a different level of where he needs to be developed. So it's exciting to be able to do that with a guy, again, that is coachable. Because I think in these days, man, like, you got to have guys that are coachable, especially when they have so many people talking to them, like, right. Like, other people that aren't with them every day, that aren't in practice with them every day, that think they have all the answers. And, for a guy like him, who I'm sure, like, all types of people want to, share their expertise. Well, he's in practice with us every day. So, he'll learn from our staff and we'll learn from each other. So he's been great in that regard.
So I got one last one. I'll let BG take one more and we'll let you go. So I'm fortunate to recruit one of the guys on your team. It's also a gold medalist with Cade, played on the USA team, and that's Isaac Likely, who's, also projected to be one of those guys that can play at the next level. So obviously I'm super biased towards him and his greatness, but I'm also from Dallas. You guys got a ton of guys from Dallas. May have more guys from the same city that's not your home city than any other school in the country. So talk about that. Does that play into you guys' chemistry? A lot of those guys grew up playing together. grew up in the neighborhood, played against each other. So yeah, talk about that a little bit before we let you go, and I'll let BJ take the last one.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a huge priority for us, that area. There's a lot of history at this university with that area, going from Marcus Smart to, LeBron Nash to all types of guys, Texas and specifically that DFW is really important. And there's a certain level of camaraderie with all these guys that are here. It's a couple of hours down the road, so it's not, I feel like it's far enough from home, but not too far from home where if they want to go home, during regular times and spend a weekend with family, they could. There's a certain level of camaraderie that I think exists, and like competitive nature, like all these guys know each other. They played against each other. Avery, Anderson, Chris Harris, obviously, everyone knows about Cade and, guys in the past, Cam McGriff. Isaac Likely is and Mike will say this, Mike has said it, he is our unquestioned leader of this team. He's kind of that do everything, super competitive. He's what we want this culture and this program to be about, not just this year, but moving forward for years on end. But no, there's a ton of pride in being from that DFW area. I'm not from there. I'm from Florida, but man, just, working at SFA, now working at Oklahoma State, like the sheer number of players that come from that area and produce, not just whether they stay in the state of Texas or surrounding states, or even go somewhere else. I mean, you've got high level, guys going to mid majors that are just killing it. And sure enough, you check his bio and he's from Dallas, or he's from Arlington, or he's from, there's a ton of talent there. And I think there's a ton of respect within our locker room of the fact that they're all really connected. I think it helped, between Cade and Ice and the rest of our guys, like there's a sense of pride, man. Like, and that's the one thing that I think you want more in the players that you bring into a program, a competitiveness and a pride about who they are, where they're from. Everything else you can kind of improve on as time goes on.
Coach, before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, you've worked for some of the biggest names in college basketball now, right? Like the names that everybody knows. Talk a little bit about Coach Boynton. I've gotten to meet him a few times. I've talked to him a few times. Seems like an incredibly genuine guy. And so maybe just a little bit about like your experience working with him and, maybe some of the things that you've learned from him here in your time at Oklahoma State.
Yeah. So Coach Boynton and I's relationship starts back, predates obviously Oklahoma State to our time at Stephen F. Austin. He was an assistant there, as was I. And that was my first Division I. I mentioned that was my first Division I assistant job. And he was already pretty experienced. I mean, he got into it like right after he was done playing at South Carolina, coached at Wofford, a few other places. So he's been, I want to say he's 38, but he is a super, super young, or excuse me, super old 38, because he literally got into Division I coaching at 23. So when I got to SFA, he was kind of my mentor as far as just how, because when you're in JUCO, you're just kind of like getting in the car, driving wherever, very loose on like compliance. Like there isn't like a whole lot going, like you're just kind of getting players and figuring it out. Yeah. Whereas there's so much more that you have to kind of put together at the Division I level. So he was a big mentor for me, not just from a recruiting standpoint, but from just the coaching and how you operate in a Division I school. Because he was so polished already, because he had already had over a decade of experience.
I would have never guessed he's 38.
Yeah,
never.
And I might be lying on. He might be 39.
He's got to be one of the youngest head coaches in Division I.
Yeah. He's not 40 yet. And if he is, I'm going to lie for him and say something. So make sure someone tells him that. But yeah, so we had this really good relationship. We spent 3 great years at SFA, and then he moved on to Oklahoma State, and I kind of went my own path. And then we've kind of connected back, but we always stayed in touch. And he's one of my best friends. People talk about, oh, that's my guy. He's one of my best friends. I'm not even gonna say in this business. He's just one of my best friends. Got a ton of respect for him as a family man, as a coach, as a recruiter. So coming here to work for him, was really a natural fit for me. I talk glowingly a lot about how great I think the situation at Florida Atlantic is and how high of a level Coach Dusty May is. Like, there weren't a lot of guys, and people could think I'm crazy. There weren't a lot of guys. I don't care the level, man. Like, I want to work with good people, and that's more important than me saying I'm a coach at this level. And there weren't a lot of guys that I would have left FAU for, and Mike was one of them. And he's just really good at, he's had to handle a lot of things that maybe fairly or unfairly have been thrown his way since he took over here. And I won't speak into detail about all that stuff, but he's handled everything with grace and class and competitive spirit to right the ship. And, that speaks to his character and the way he is more than anything. And so just learning from him the same way I learned from him during my time at SFA, I'm learning from him now as a head coach of how he handles day in, day out situations, but he hasn't changed. Like, the same dude that was on a, bus with me playing a Southland game, driving 8 hours to Corpus Christi for a game. He's the same guy. He's the same guy. He can afford a couple more pairs of J's. His shoe game is but he hasn't changed, man. The work ethic, the way he treats people, that's probably the greatest thing that I think, like, and with a lot of things that I think he does a really good job at. He treats people so well. And like, he treats every person like he's genuinely trying to get to know that person.
Yeah.
Whether it's in academics, whether it's within the community, it isn't just about the people that could do something for him at all. And he's always been that way, man. If you ever go out to dinner with him, like, he'll have a full conversation with the waitress or the waiter, and he'll be like, "Where are you from?" Like, and it's all genuine, man. Like, it's all genuine, and that's what kind of I think separates him from a lot of people in our profession. I liken him to an unofficial JUCO guy, because he's wired the same way. He just never, coached in JUCO, but I know he can have success coaching junior college kids, which he is right now with Bryce Williams. We got another guy, Bernard Kuma, on our team from South Plains. He kind of understands that mindset because he's worked for everything. So he's been a great mentor for me. And then that's not to say just with all those other guys, man. I got to shout out, Frank Martin has been, he's like an uncle to me. He's the guy that got me in this business without question. Brad Underwood gave me an unbelievable opportunity at SFA, and even probably the most interesting dynamic of my coaching stops was, and I've talked about him a couple times, Steve Forbes. Working for him in Northwest Florida was probably the most eye-opening 10 months, because I was still so green and so young, and I thought I had it all figured out. And I get there, and I'm working for a guy, and bless Forbes and Shea that are both Division I head coaches now. But so Steve Forbes was coming off like Elite Eights at Tennessee, and now all of a sudden he's coaching junior college. Yeah, Northwest Florida. Jason Shea was an assistant at Tennessee, as was Forbes, coaching in Elite Eights. Now he's an assistant junior college coach. So these guys, like, I'm looking at them and I'm interacting with them every day, seeing them recruit, coach, and I'm like, these guys are a lot better than me at this job. And like, they made it there, and then this happened to them, and look how they're like continuing to work and continuing to grind. And that's why, to me, it's not a coincidence that Jason Shea is the head coach at East Tennessee and Steve Forbes the head coach at Wake Forest. Like,
well, and if you know those guys, I didn't know them when they were at Tennessee, but I imagine who they were at Tennessee and how they interacted with and treated people and stuff was exactly the same way as in junior college. Like, it wasn't this, I'm here and now I'm here and, whatever. Like, you talk to Steve Forbes now and you would have if you didn't know Steve Forbes and you talk to Steve Forbes, you wouldn't be like ACC head coach.
Well, and that's like, that's him just being who he is, man. Like, he if you are who you are, you don't have to, keep up with the lies. Like, he just is who he is. And working with him and Shea was so eye-opening. Working with everybody that I've worked with at every stop has been beneficial. But that was so eye-opening for me, just because I was like, man, like, I had to have, and I've had bumps in the road. And me and Brian have talked about this, obviously, about our separate, obstacles that we've had to deal with. And I've always gone back to like that, my experience with those guys. And I'm just like, like, man, like you can't have this expectation that everything's going to go right for you, no matter, what happens. I mean, you go to 3 NCAA tournaments and all of a sudden you're not really sure what's going to happen. Well,
right.
You got to kind of dust yourself off and figure it out and make the best out of every situation. And I wouldn't change anything for my experience. And I guarantee if you guys ever have Forbes or Shea on, they would say the exact same thing because it made them who they were. And I will say this, that 1 year, I never heard them complain or talk about Tennessee. They talked about it in a glowing way, but they never, like they were focused on the job. Like they were focused on Northwest Florida. How can we make them the best that we can be? And they obviously did. And we had an awesome year. And I'm forever thankful. I don't think those guys really understand how eye-opening and how beneficial that was for me in my development. That's helped me get to the spot, that I am now. And I'm just thankful for it, man. I wouldn't want to work for any other kind of guys. I know a lot of people say that, like me and Brian have talked about this. Like, I don't want to coach Division I just to say I'm a Division I coach.
Right.
Like I'm not here for the title, man. Like I'd be just as happy going back to a place like Daytona. Like as long as I can impact people and be around the right people. Like I'm not going to just, go work for anybody just to say I'm a Division I coach. I don't need the title that bad.
Right. Now you've worked for some of the best, man. Super excited for what you're doing. And you talked about Coach Mike, and I can't say enough. I was in the same league with you guys at Lamar when you guys were at Stephen F. Austin and having those recruiting battles and it wasn't any battles on the court because you guys won all of them against everybody during that time. But he's definitely a cut above the rest. He's a top shelf guy, character in class. He's a leader of men, and he just, like you said, he treats people. He hasn't changed from the same guy who was an assistant at Stephen F. Austin, who actually tried to get the Stephen F. Austin job when Underwood left. Didn't get it. A year later, he's an assistant at Oklahoma State. At the end of the year, he becomes the head coach there. So awesome to see how guys worked in him. And, he's going to continue to be one of the top coaches in college basketball, in my opinion. At 38, he's going to be doing this till he's who knows how old, but he's going to be one of the best, and he's going to continue to stay at a high level. And excited for you guys, man. Best of luck. Thanks for coming on, showing some JUCO love, and keep kicking butt, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, and I definitely want to let people know that JUCO, I'd assume a lot of junior college guys enjoy watching this, but JUCO, like I wouldn't trade my JUCO time for anything, man. Like JUCO has prepared me for where I'm at right now, and I'm thankful for it, man. Like I would have no issue with going back to JUCO, and I know Hank's gonna call me right after this and be like, "Man, you're a lot." But it's made me who I am, and that has helped me just deal with the different things that I've had to deal with, and it's not a coincidence, man, that so many JUCO guys have success at this level. Like it's because Chris Jans, I mean you can go on and on, Kermit Davis, like all those guys that have had success at junior college or having success here, and so I'm thankful for you guys having me on, man. I'm thankful for both your guys' friendships, and I always see Brandon. I told him he's starting a different venture every 3 weeks, it seems like, but it's awesome because it's all with the mindset to help people.
Right.
He's always trying to help people, and Brian, you're always trying to do the same, man. Like same goes for the church story that I had. Me and you were competitive in the Southland, and yep. We had a good we had a good relationship, man. I'll never understand some of the egos in this profession that don't think that they can have a good relationship and try to help each other while also trying to be competitive and beat each other.
Right.
We all got to help each other in this business, and especially in these times. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you.
Well, go kick butt. I know you got bigger fish to fry. The Big 12 is as hot as any conference in the country, so we'll let you get back to it, man. But appreciate you showing some JUCO love, DP.
Appreciate you guys, man. Thanks a lot for having me.
Be good, Coach.
Yeah, EP from Oklahoma State. Awesome. Love to see some high-level dudes that still showing love JUCO, man.
It's awesome. It's awesome. I ran into him and Coach Boynton at the U19 tryouts, and he had – I'm trying to remember. I think he'd just gotten there. I honestly don't remember. And I hadn't seen him since he'd been at Daytona. And it's always so cool to see those guys that you run into on the road and stuff when they're kind of, they're in junior college and all that. And then you see them in this completely different environment, wearing a different hat and,
different logo.
move to where they want to be and all that kind of stuff, and seeing, good dudes in the business like succeed and get what they want and get to where they want to be and all that. So
and not change. I think that's the awesome
100%. Yeah. Because that was the thing is like he and I had met each other a few times. We talked quite a bit on the phone and stuff, but I just hadn't been around him a ton. And we walk into that U19 thing, and it's every high major head coach in the country is in there.
Right.
And Pastrana comes right up with Boynton, to say what's up. Like it wasn't, like he's not, one of the big names there or anything. It's just Coach Pastrana. Like, it was awesome. It was cool.
Well, we got a couple other guests before we get to some great one-on-one talk with BG, talking about some of the things going on with junior college upcoming, talking about some of the stuff at the NCAA level, and just anything that may come to mind. We're going to talk about after our next couple guests. So stay tuned, and we'll have our first two ladies on the JUCO Hoops Insider. So looking forward to that. Stay tuned. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. So we got the
fancy background we got here.
The season.
What?
Lights for the season. We're gonna go. We're gonna introduce our ladies here in a minute. We're actually gonna let them introduce themselves, but we got two head coaches. So we're gonna introduce them or let them introduce themselves. Bring them in the studio. What up, ladies?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. So I wouldn't be able to do full justice. So we're gonna let Brandon hang out for just a second and ask one question. But I want you ladies to introduce yourselves real quick, if you don't mind. Can you hear us, Coach Ivy?
Oh, you're on
you.
Coach.
That's okay. We'll go Coach Hayden first. We'll let you figure out. We'll get some technical support to get in here and with some technical difficulties. But Hannah, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick so that people can know who you are.
Sure. My name is Hannah Hayden, head coach at Moberly Area Community College in Moberly, Missouri. Entering my third season.
Awesome. And then let's see. Coach, you have audio on your side, Coach Ivy? So you can hear us, but we can't hear you. All right, we're gonna do this. Until we figure it out, we're gonna call you on the phone. We're gonna do it that way.
Sounds like a great whiteboard situation here. She just dropped. Coach Hayden, while they're figuring out the back somewhere.
All right, go ahead.
There, can she hear?
We'll step out. We'll figure this out. Go ahead,
Coach Hayden. So not your normal season, right? I've kind of asked everybody that's come on here, just getting different answers and things like that. We knew this wasn't going to be a normal start to the year. I'm not sure if we necessarily knew it was going to be as chaotic as it has been. What are some of the things that you've, I guess, done with your girls to try and develop as best you can in a time when like it's difficult to run a practice, let alone, have any sort of normalcy to your program and things? What are some stuff that like you've talked to your players about, have them doing different things like that to just make sure that, hey, we get to the end of January, hopefully we're able to kick things off and everybody's ready to go?
Yeah, I guess the main thing is just trying to create a mock sense of normalcy. This is the first year ever that you're starting out the school year and all of our classes are online and virtual. So in a sense, the only thing that they have to do maybe is go to practice at 1:30. So we've just been trying to create that structure. And typically they would get up and they would go to class at 8:30 or 8, 9, whenever their first class is. And then they would go to lunch in the cafeteria. They'd come over and go to practice. So since we're not getting up and going to class right now, we're getting up and going to the library, or when our kids were on campus, we're going to the library and we're So we're getting them up, hey, time for breakfast, and we're going to class, and they got their book bags on, and just trying to stimulate that and trying to get them in a routine, because I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I think student athletes need. That I just think, what would I need in this time? And I think that I would want that routine. And we don't want them laying in bed all day and logging in on Zoom, from their beds laying down. So
doing exactly what I would do. Yeah. Or what I do now, I guess.
Yeah. So that's probably the biggest thing that we try to do, is just kind of keep that structure, and they go over to class, 9:30 to noon or whatever it is. And then they go to lunch and they come over to practice. We always do, they call it like a More Than a Game series, where we have somebody talk about mental health and time management, how to be a student athlete, how to write emails and things like that. So we're still doing those same things, but obviously most of it's virtual. We usually have these speakers come in, but we've had, whether it's our professors at Moberly, or, just our outside speakers, everybody's been really good about, everybody became Zoom experts over, the past 6 months or longer. So just being able to have those people, do it virtually like that. And our kids, I think in normal years when there's things to do, our kids are like, oh my gosh, we have to come over back at 7 o'clock and listen to a note-taking something. But right now, trying to maintain our bubble. So at Moberly, it's only men's and women's basketball right now, and we're really trying to make a bubble, meaning no visitors on, nobody leaves. We're trying to really keep them on campus. So I think that they even, looked forward to whenever we would host those things in the evenings, and just get to have speakers and things like that. So I think, we always try to teach them how to write an email to their professors, but it's been huge this year because they don't have that one-on-one interaction, and it's like, we have likable kids, so if they need some help, they can kind of use that charm whenever you have that one-on-one interaction. But not having that, you got to be able to write a good email whenever you need some help. So.
That's huge. I mean, because there's so many kids that we've, specifically with some of the international kids that we've brought over from our camps and stuff like that. They're the world's greatest kids, right? I mean, you're around them in person and you can't help but smile. And the teachers are the same way. And if they need help with something, it's easy. This has been tough, for them. I mean, some of these kids, like they didn't even grow up around computers or anything. So, that's been difficult, and writing those emails, and I'm telling them, I mean, even Gideon at BYU, and I'm like, Gideon, like, you got to get on that Zoom and like convey who you are to this professor, because you're amazing. And, people love you, but there's this screen between you now. And like, they don't get as much of that if you're just kind of looking at the camera the whole time. Like, it's tough. It's been something.
It has.
Coach Ivy.
Yes, sir. Pretty good. And yourself?
I'm good. Tell us, do a quick intro here, and then I got a question for you as well.
Precious Ivy from Dallas, Texas. Been in the JUCO game 7 years. Working on my 8th year in JUCO right now. Went D1 for 2 years at Houston Baptist Community College. The other JUCO I've been at is Tyler Junior College as well, which is about 37 miles down the road. So it's a little different being on this end, but I think I like this end a lot better than being on that end. It's just a big place to be with all the history and the tradition and all that good stuff. So I'm here.
There you go. I think that's about all we could say. Is everybody says, "How you doing?" and you're like, "I'm here." I'm looking at the same 4 walls.
Definitely.
And speaking to that, Coach, maybe speak a little bit about some of the things that you guys have had to really focus on this fall with players, and Coach Hayden said it, mental health. I think that's something that we all have those things that we deal with in our lives. Players are no different on any given year, right? But we always had those games coming up where you could kind of like put this carrot out there and you say, all right, we're going to power through this week. We're going to get through this class. We're going to, whatever, this practice has been tough, but guess what? Next week you get to play games. And now we're like, nope. And that weighs on players. That weighs on us, but we have to, you as coaches, me as if I'm mentoring somebody or whatever, like we got to kind of almost pretend like we don't have, these stresses going on for their benefit. Some things that you've done and had to deal with there as far as like making sure your girls are prepared mentally and kind of focused and able to keep themselves up, I guess.
We've definitely had some challenges this semester, as I'm sure every other school, not just junior college, has had to deal with. But I mean, I've had more kids this year ask for more help when it comes to needing someone to talk to, just needing someone to listen, needing somebody to give them advice. And good for us that we have someone on campus that can do those things. Obviously, we're not the only team that's probably needing her. So we've had to reach out to other people in the community as well, because I think so many student athletes and just students in general are needing that extra mental support because things are not normal. And with things not being normal, I mean, what is normal anymore, right? So,
I don't even know.
with that
I don't
being
remember.
said, I think kids are just not knowing how to adjust, and asking them to be in a pandemic away from their families, confined to a campus is really hard, and things that they, like you said, that they would normally let go of during games, they're not able to do that, and there's only so many carrots you can dangle in practice. There's only so many inter squad scrimmages you can do. And we're really used to having a practice squad here. And that has been difficult for me because I'm not wanting to let anybody in our little bubble, in order for us to stay healthy and stay safe. So that has been difficult, especially my returners, because they're used to playing against young males every day and them playing against each other. And yeah, we're getting better, but we're not getting that same competitiveness that we would get if there were other people in the gym, So the mental side has been very tough, and just keeping them focused has been super tough. And I heard Coach speaking about getting to know their professors a lot more, getting to be more visible on Zooms, emailing. That has been a challenge for us as well, because I find that the kids think that everything is a text message instead of instead of a formal email, and so I make them show me their emails before they send them out until I think they get the hang of it, so that I'm making sure that I'm not only saving their face, but also I'm teaching them and I'm mentoring them, because at some point after basketball, there's life, and they'll have to send that email to a boss or to another colleague. And so I just feel like I've been using that this time to do that stuff that we don't really normally pay attention to, I guess, as head coaches, because normally our assistant coaches are kind of the ones that get to do it. But speaking that I'm so shortly removed from being an assistant coach, I find myself still doing the same thing and still kind of being in that same role as I would as an assistant. But just mental health has been very, very hard for a lot of athletes. And as coaches, we obviously we have to save face and we have to be okay, but it's stressful for us too, and we're keeping them in this bubble and in this circle, but they're going to go to Walmart. They're going to go to get something to eat. My kids are going to run to Tyler for something. They're going to run to Dallas because I'm like right in the middle of both. So it's just a constant day in, day out stress on me, because I'm like, okay, you're sniffing. Are you sick? You sneeze. Are you sick? It's like there's no other sickness out there right now other than COVID. And, I mean,
just Lysoling them off.
Yeah, you can have allergies. You have common colds. I mean, I had a kid that had strep, and you would have thought she had the COVID, because I was like, wait, no, get away. And then she only had strep throat. And it's sad that I say only had, but that's kind of our mindset now. You're like, I don't have anything but COVID right now, And so fortunately, we've had no cases on our team this past semester. So I'm just hoping that rolls right into next semester, because next semester is really, really when it counts. So
yeah, for sure. Coach B, you're going to have to clip up the bit there about the sending the emails part. We laugh about it because it's kind of silly, right? You're like, oh, okay, we really got to focus on these emails. It's so important right now. It's crazy because we're not used to this. The players aren't used to this. The coaches aren't used to this. Guess what? The professors aren't used to this either. There are plenty of professors that not only hate doing the Zoom thing, they almost want to just rebuke it, because it's like, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't why I'm a professor. And so, that whole interaction between student and professor getting lost like that what you guys are doing as far as like simple things, like this is how you send a legit email. This is how you send an email that if you're working at a Fortune 500 company and you got to send it to your manager, like that thing better be tight. Well, you know what? It better be right now as well, because this is one of the few ways you have to interact with a professor and really show them who you are. And if your email starts off with, yo, what's up? Like, that's not going to get it done.
Definitely.
What about when the whole body is just, why did I get a C?
Right.
Hey, who are
Tell me
you?
about that.
Or where there's no periods, no commas, no question mark. It's just
Who
a
are
paragraph.
you? What was this assignment? Just why'd I get a C?
Yeah, the art of the comma needs to be explained. But no,
Yes.
I mean, that's great what you guys are doing. So
I love it. I love it. We're gonna give BG. I'm gonna let him step out for a minute. I'm gonna take over and hang out with the ladies. So let's talk about JUCO basketball. So what's some of the misconceptions for JUCO basketball on the women's side? Obviously, we talk about the men's side all the time. Not as familiar, most people, with the women's side. So my brother's a women's head coach at Texas A&M Commerce, so I'm very familiar. My wife's a former volleyball head coach, so I'm very familiar with it. But tell people, even in the recruiting process, I'm sure you guys have to do a lot of educating, a lot of understanding, because I'm sure on the female side, they probably think junior college, like, what does that mean? I don't want to do that. So just real quick, if you don't mind, just kind of take turns, just kind of what are some of those misconceptions and how do you combat those? I'll let Coach Hayden go first.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely battling those misconceptions every single day. I guess the number one thing is that's JUCO is for bad kids, right? Kids that they didn't make it somewhere, got kicked out of somewhere, don't have good character. That's, I think, a main one. That JUCO is only for kids that don't have good grades. I would say that most of the kids that we recruit have really good GPAs coming out of high school. And if they are not a qualifier, they're usually getting tripped up by the ACT and SAT. I think a big misconception in JUCO is that there's no structure. Having been a player at the JUCO level, and then at the 4-year level, and then having coached at pretty much every level, I could, say for us anyways, I think JUCO has the most structure. And I think if you ask any of our players, they would say, their day is pretty much mapped out for them. So I think that those are probably the biggest ones. And I think to combat that, I mean, we just use, we use our current players. And the biggest thing, which has been, difficult with everything going on, is getting players on campus and letting them interact with our players. And, having them at a practice and, just exposing them to the kids that we have. And educating them, like, okay, now this kid, the best thing about JUCO is that it provides a second chance for players, and not in the negative misconception way of it had to give somebody a second chance because she got kicked out of somewhere or she couldn't make it. Really a second chance to go through the recruiting process again, or, just showcase yourself to more 4-year programs. And so educating them on the real reason why most players do go JUCO. Yes, it is occasionally the SAT or ACT score, but it's also kids that got hurt their senior year or didn't get seen in the summer. And there's multiple reasons behind that. I think we have players on our team that just didn't play on good enough programs in the summer to get seen. And then we have players that played on really good programs, and there's a Power 5 kid in their position, and they stayed the course and hung in there, and they got overlooked. Okay, cool, come on. You have the undersized kids. So you have a little 5'2", 5'3" point guard, or you have a 5'11" forward, that maybe just need a little bit more polish. Or at the JUCO level, what we sell those kids on is come and play with and against other Division I players, and you show these 4-year coaches that you can compete at this level. And then I think the biggest, maybe not the biggest one, but this one is definitely getting up there, is think about all the hands that are involved in these recruiting processes now. And kids become the victim of people around them serving their own interests. So we've gotten good players from the AAU coach being on one page and the high school coach being on one page and the parents being on another page, and say, this kid has an offer from this D1, but and the high school coach took them on a visit or somebody, and they committed, and then the AAU coach is still shopping them. They pulled the offer, and now this school doesn't have a scholarship for. And the whole thing the AAU coach was trying to prevent was JUCO, and now that's all they got. So come on.
Right,
so
right.
I think that there's so many scenarios, and that's the biggest thing that we try to communicate with whenever we're recruiting, is that there's a million reasons, and 99.9% of the time it's not because this is a bad kid or kid that's not smart.
Right. Well said. Appreciate it. Coach Ivy, what would you say to piggyback that? I'm sure some of it's similar to what.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of hit all the major stops we would talk about. But I mean, I think also we kind of just have to let the transfer kids understand that you come in and you work hard, and you get re-recruited. So you kind of use this as another stepping stone to get to where you want to be. And also with the high school kids as well, if you're not getting the looks that you're wanting or the school that you've always dreamed to go to, this gives you another chance to kind of display your talents and your skills in order to get re-recruited as well. So I think, like she said, a big misconception is that junior college is less than, and it's really not. It kind of can be used to better yourself and as a skill development tool as well. On the men's side, they kind of do the preparatory schools, and that's not necessarily as big on the women's side. So I think junior college kind of fills that gap to where you can go and have that year of experience under your belt. So when you do get to the next school, you're not starting from scratch. You see what I'm saying? And so I think that the ladies are starting to get to that point now where they kind of understand that more. But it's still, like she said, you're fighting a AAU coach, you're fighting a high school coach, you're fighting a parent that just does not understand how this can be beneficial to their child. And so now you're recruiting the kid, but you have to recruit the parent as well, because they have to have another knowledge and a basic understanding of this isn't a negative thing. This is a positive thing, and that she can use this to get to where she wants to be. It's just a stepping stone. And instead of, oh my God, I have to go to JUCO, what I tend to run into is with my transfers, they think, oh, I just came from this D1. I should be the man or the woman when I get here, and this is going to be easy. And it's far from easy.
Real quick.
It's serious real quick, because what they don't understand is we as junior college coaches have to push them even harder in order to get them to where they want to be. Or they look back at us in March and they're going, Coach, I have no offers. Well, do you remember back in September when I told you need to work harder, but you thought that this was just the JUCO, so you didn't have to, you know what I'm saying? And so with that, I mean, it's hard to get the transfers to understand that this doesn't mean you get to Cadillac. This means you have to actually ramp it up, you know? And I mean, especially here with the past history and all the things that's happened before maybe I was even born, you know, they don't realize that is a target on our backs. It's not nothing we did. You know, you fighting for something that the team in 98 did, or the team in 2004 did, you know, and so with that target being on your back, every night is a battle. And sometimes when these kids come from transfer school, they don't realize it's the real deal every night. Everybody's trying to come in here and beat you, you know, and so I think that negative connotation kind of sort of is something that kids don't realize. This isn't a Cadillac time. This is time where you got to actually work harder so that you can get back to where you want to go. And get the things done that you need to get done to get to where you want to be. And I think these kids just don't realize. I try to run my program as a D1 program, because I don't want anything to be a surprise when they go D1 for the first time or when they go back, you know. And like she said,
I want to ask you about that, because I know you coach Division I, and I know Coach has also coached Division I. So I was in the Southland as well as both of you, where I worked with Hannah at Lamar for a year. I had the pleasure of getting on her nerves a little bit around the corner for Coach Harmon, and they won a championship there. And then I know you were at HBU. So talk about real quick what you were about to talk about, which is your program and how you run it like a Division I, and even just how you're able to prepare kids for the next level because you've been at that level, and you can also understand what the levels are. What is the difference? And I think sometimes people think, oh, because it's junior college, it's not going to be run, where there's a lot of junior college who are running their program at even more elite level Division I's are. This doesn't have the same resources, the same glamour, the same prestige, so to speak, the same video cameras. And we've talked about it many times on this show, JUCO being the purest level. And so talk a little bit about it, 1 minute or so. Talk a little bit about that before we have some fun and tell some JUCO fun stories. Coach Ivy, I'll go ahead and let you go first, and I'll let Hannah go next.
Yeah, she mentioned, like, I try to tailor my program, like I said, like a Division I program. And she mentioned how this is probably a more structured level. And I think it is as well, because we're fighting the academic battle in some ways, and we're fighting the athletic battle in some ways, depending on what the reason is for the kid being here. And so I feel like we do have to have it all lined out. for the kids so that they can be ready when they do leave us. And you don't want them to have that, oh, she's a JUCO kid, so she's doing that. Or, oh, she came from a JUCO, so this and that. It should just be, oh, that's another one of our players. She should never have to be labeled as the JUCO kid or, oh, she played at JUCO. So I do try. I mean, we have study halls. We have obviously practices. We have film sessions. We have weights. We have conditioning. So I try to line it out and map it out to where when they do go to that next level, it's not a surprise for them. They do understand that there will be conditioning in the morning and weights. You will come back and practice. You do have to come and shoot on your own. There is individuals like you do have to have study hall. Like she said, the full day is pretty much planned out. And by us being on, we are kind of half and half virtual, half face-to-face. So it kind of helps that we have some doing both, but it gives me more time to map out their every movement. And so if anybody else's kids are like mine, naps are very important. And I don't want naps in the middle of the day, you know, so I try to have them at the gym during nap time so that they can have a full routine, you know, because if you can go nap in and out all day, you'll never get into a groove of things. And when we do get into season, we might be in a tournament, we plan at 1:30 and that's your normal nap time. So I don't need your body not functioning at that time because our bodies are very routine, you know, and they do what we practice them to do, you know. And so I just try to, like I said, map out their full days. My assistant, she does a really good job of making sure everybody's in study hall for X amount of hours. I mean, she does a really good job with that. And I'll kind of give her a shout out right now. Her name is Princess Davis. And just got an email not too long ago when we had a team GPA of 3.4. So we're pretty excited about that because that's another negative connotation of JUCO kids that the grades aren't going to be good. But my kids do a really good job with that. And so, like you said, being at the D1 level, those kids, you don't necessarily, where I was at, I'll speak from where I was. At HBU, it's more of a private university, and you didn't have to tell them to go to study hall. It was not a thing. Like, they were telling you they were going to study hall, you know, and it's totally different here, right? So, but I do know that other Division I's probably do have a battle of study hall and that kind of thing. So I do have to make sure that my kids can survive when they get there and they don't have to have their hands held and they don't be the kid that the assistant coach is like, oh my God, if I have to go knock on her door one more time, you know, because it happens, you know, and so I just try my hardest for it not to be a Trinity Valley Lady Cardinal.
Where did your assistant coach play, by the way, Coach?
Coach, come on now. He plays for your brother over at Texas A&M Commerce, one of the best to do it. So I'm very excited for her to be here. She brings so much knowledge to my point guards. We both play point guard, but it's something that I don't have to worry about now because I do have her, you know, and that's a good thing.
Yep, she's awesome. I got a comment from Herker. He's talking about Trinity Valley earlier. He's saying one of the best women's programs in the country, regardless of level. So Herb Baker's out of Houston, Texas. Appreciate the shout out, Herb.
Appreciate that.
Hannah, so you played at that, or you coached at that level as well at Lamar. Talk a little bit about, you know, how that is an asset and how that helps you even run your program now.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot just being exposed to different conferences and to different systems and things like that. So, you know, like if you have, you know, you can evaluate your own players and having done scouts and watched so much film and been a part of so many games at that level, and you're kind of familiar with, you know, what SFA is running or what Nichols is running or, you know, just whoever. And you're able to evaluate, okay, can this kid compete at this level? You know, okay, they run and jump press, or they run dribble drive, and, you know, just being able to kind of help your players find a good fit for them. You know, coaching styles and just the people that you meet. And I do think that having been at the Division I level, it does give you like a little bit more credibility. We know there's so many good JUCO coaches, but you know, there's always the few that are trying to, you know, get their players to get to the next job, you know, to get them at the Division I level, or that say that every single kid they have is a Division I player. So I just try to use the experience to really be transparent and honest. And when coaches call me, hey, is she this level? If she is, you know, of course, then I want to tell them about her. But if she's not, then I can say that too. And I just think that having that credibility, it does help your program and it helps your players because, you know, when you make sure the kids are prepared and playing at the level that they need to play at, or that they're good enough to play at, then they produce, and that helps your program too.
Absolutely. Now we get to the fun stuff, right? Get to the fun stuff. So, funny story. You got to tell us at least one funny story before we let you go. of the JUCO life or head coach life or even assistant coach life? Anything funny story you can tell us? Give us a little entertainment value real quick. Coach Ivy will let you go first.
Oh,
Don't act like you don't have none. Don't act like you don't have
no,
none.
I have plenty. We need a book. We need a JUCO. This is JUCO
Really
life.
do. The JUCO crowd.
Because it will definitely be a top seller because you get some of the purest stories in these kids. Just one that kind of sticks out to me. I was an assistant, and we were obviously teaching defense. And I know everybody's terms are kind of different, but shoot the gap to me is kind of universal. Okay, so you're going to shoot the gap. So I'm telling these kids, you got to shoot the gap. You got to shoot the gap. Now, remind you, this probably started in September-ish, October-ish, when we're really breaking stuff down. And we're getting ready for the national tournament. And I am fussing. I'm like, hey, this team, like, they're really good off screens. When you're in help, you got to shoot the gap. And I'm just going into full explanation. I mean, I'm out there, and I hadn't quite demonstrated it lately. I'll say that, And so I have this kid, and she's looking at me, and she's shaking her head, and okay, coach. And I'm like, okay, go. So we go live. She stands in help. Her girl she's guarding goes up, and she's still sitting in help low. And I'm like, shoot the gap. And she's like, okay. And she's just shaking her head and she's grinning. She hasn't moved. It's like she's in concrete. I'm like, hey, listen, I just told you, like, you got to shoot the gap. She's coming off the screens, come straight up. She's like, okay, coach. I'm like, all right, boom, go. She still doesn't move. So I'm like, wait. Baby, do you know what I mean when I say shoot the gap? Yeah, coach, you told me I got to stand here in the gap. Like, I shot over here fast, like you wanted me to get here quick. And I'm like, no, I want you to come up the lane and shoot the gap so you can meet her and be in the passing lane. And remind you, this is late March. Like, it's almost spring break time because we talk about that. Right. Yeah, and I'm like, it's no way we went September, October, November, December, January, February. We're 6 months in, and you haven't known what I've been talking about this whole time. But she was just so athletic. If you didn't break it down, you wouldn't have been able to tell. But we were doing breakdowns because, like I said, you have to be ready for these things. You get to the national tournament, you have the elite shooters, Right. And so we are about 4 days to the national tournament, and this baby was like, yeah, you mean like shoot over here quickly and get in this area right here and help. And I'm like, no, actually what I mean. So then I have to actually demonstrate. And I think that's really big at the JUCO level. Demonstrations are very big. And if you can't demonstrate, you're going to be in trouble because their minds and terminology is just so lost nowadays with especially this generation. Like, they don't know terminology. They know Steph Curry, they know LeBron, they know Westbrook, they know the step back 8 times is James Harden, but they don't understand the basic terminology. And it just blew my mind that we were 6 months into the season at the time, probably 25 and 2 or 3, and she had no idea what I was talking about when I told her to shoot the gap. So that's one of many. Like I said, we need a book that's called JUCO
Chronicles.
Yeah, because Division I coaches would not even imagine. You can go JUCO to D1, but I don't think you can go D1 to JUCO. I think it's tough, because you wear so many hats to be a college coach.
The next level with all
yeah. And then you go JUCO, you like, wait, I gotta mop the floor, I gotta drive the bus, I gotta wash the clothes. Yeah, you gotta do all of that. And so I think if you don't go in the right order, you're gonna be a little lost.
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble, definitely.
Coach Hayden.
Sure. Well, I think I'm going to go with kind of the recruiting story.
Yeah, what you got?
So and I'm sure Precious deals with this kind of stuff all the time. This was a first for me though. So last year, I remember it was our first game back from Christmas break, and we're about to play Illinois Central, who's like number 4 in the country in Division II. You know how you sit out and you watch warm-ups a little bit. So at the time, I had post players, All-American. She's got like 25 Division I offers. And one of the schools that's recruiting her, the recruiting coordinator sends me a text and says, hey, my head coach is coming to the game. No, hey, which is a pet peeve of mine. Just my head coach is coming to the game on Friday. What time's the tip and how far is our drive? And I'm like, I think he says, how far is the drive? And I'm like, well, maybe they think that this is the away game for us or something. Because I'm like, well, we do drive. So I'm like, how far is that? I'm like, it's a home game. And they're like, no, from our campus to your campus. And I'm like, level, we've driven 4.5 hours ourselves on our bus. You know, we show up, we're warming up for a big game. And I'm getting this text from a Division I recruiting coordinator wanting me to do. I'm like, I don't know if their phone didn't have maps or. But yeah, that was just a funny one for me.
Yeah, we probably could tell a lot of funny stories about coaches that recruit your programs. That we probably expose a lot of people if we did that. We won't say schools or names, but yeah. So
you're on anonymous,
right?
Exactly. Anonymous coach did this. I think Brandon's got some good anonymous coach stories. We need to do that section next because he sees quite a bit too. I was in JUCO 5 years. You definitely learn what not to do and what to do because you get to see people's pitches. You get to see people do what they do. And I coached in grassroots too. I know Coach Hayden, I know you did as well. I don't know if you have Coach Ivy, but you get to see how people recruit. So it's like, all right, I like that. I'm stealing that. No, I'm away from that. I never forget we had one guy, like he came to recruit, quick story, and he just wouldn't leave. Like he just wouldn't leave. Like we're in study hall. He was at practice. He was at practice. It's like, you're trying to get something to eat before study hall. He's like trying to come with me. I'm like, cool, coach. Well, cool. Come on. So he comes. And then he's like in study hall, just like trying to follow the kid around. He's trying to recruit him. Like, yo, man, this ain't the way you get a kid signed. It's not the way to do it. So anyway, well, thanks so much for coming. Happy holidays to you both. I don't know if you have a special someone, but there may be somebody who watched today and they may be sending you, a new Christmas card because you may have some new fans. So that's a good thing. Right. But happy holidays. Any last words you have? Please feel free to say, and thanks so much for taking the time to join us today to shine some light on the women's side of JUCO hoops.
I just want to say thank you to you for having us, and like you said, shining some light on junior college women's basketball because it is so underrated and so missed among the rankings. And I just think that this is a good platform for us to talk on and share our programs, but not just our programs, like you said, just women's basketball in general, because I do think we get overshadowed by so many other sports, especially men's basketball, but I mean, all sports, I think. So this is great. Keep doing what you're doing, my man. And I wish you the best of luck. Happy holidays to both of you. Coach, good luck. I'm praying and rooting for you from afar.
Yeah, the good thing is y'all in the same conference, so you don't have to play each other until the national tournament, so y'all can be friends.
We good. We can even be friends there. Just 40 minutes.
That's part of what it's about, though.
Exactly. You have to be able to do both.
Yeah, we need to have that. We got a quick comment. Donnie Jackson, he said, good episode, JUCO for life. Donnie J, shout out to Donnie. I got to coach one of his guys at Lamar. Tori Noel, matter of fact, played for coach over there in Oklahoma. Really good basketball coach and great man. So appreciate the love and shout out. Coach Hayden, any last words?
Yeah, just Coach, it was nice to see you. We were actually, Trinity Valley was the #1 seed going into the tournament. And had we won our first game, we would have been matched up. But obviously didn't even get an opportunity. That would have been my first national tournament experience. So I'm still a little salty about that. But like Coach is praying that we all get to play as many games as possible. Hopefully get to have that experience this year. Brian, thanks for having us. And then, shout out to Braden for all he does for JUCO all the time.
For sure. Hey, Coach, let's just have a repeat now. You go at the same seed, I go at the same seed, and we hope we'll just make it happen.
We're going to try to avoid you this year.
I love it. Well, keep up the good work. Appreciate what you guys are doing. I know it's harder on you guys' mental health, too, to keep everybody in the right spot. You know what I mean? Like you talked about them going to Walmart or wherever it may be. You're just always kind of in that mode where you're just thinking like, man, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. So make sure you're taking care of yourselves too, ladies, and appreciate all you guys are doing on the front lines because you guys are doing the real work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy holidays. Hey, we did the lights just for you ladies too. We did the lights just for y'all.
I love it.
Hey, it's beautiful. You did a good job, man.
Okay, so, sounds good. Thanks so much for coming.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, getting some JUCO women's hoops, some love. Absolutely love it. And we got another comment. Anthony Anderson, P, and Hannah are two of the great ones. So couldn't agree more. We'll get BG back, and we'll talk some JUCO hoops, some NCAA hoops. We will be right back in about 10, maybe 15 seconds. We'll be quick. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. My man, we back. Episode 5. Got our guests done. No other guests today. We're just doing 3 guests. Okay. We out. It's BG time. I'm going to talk JUCO Advocate. Talk JUCO Advocate. So we do need to have like a section when we talk about anonymous stories about recruiting stories.
Are you kidding me?
I won't even put names on it.
You know, the hard part about anonymous stories in this business is you can say them anonymously, but it's such a small business that everybody goes, I know who that is.
I know who that was.
Like there was an article that I think Norlander wrote, maybe. And he was talking about he was interviewing a head coach, a Division I head coach. And the guy was talking about the different events that he'd gone to. You know, he'd gone to Peach Jam. He'd come down to our J45 event. And so they were talking about it in there. And I knew exactly who they were talking about, or who the anonymous coach was. Yeah. And like, not everything that he had to say was super positive about all this stuff. He's like, this and all that. And I'm like, bro, people know who you are. Like there was like 1 or 2 little clues in there where you're just like, oh, I know.
It's not working.
Like, you're not as anonymous as you think you are.
I love it. It's like the new thing to say source whenever you get breaking news. It's like
sources. Like
we know where you got that from.
Right. Yeah, I'll get that too. They say, you know, I'll be talking to somebody about something and you know, or like Jeff Goodman or whatever. Oh, can I post that? And I'm like, no, because everyone will know exactly where it came from.
Exactly. So tell us one before we get into like,
oh man,
tell us one anonymous, may not be anonymous, but anonymous story about recruiting from a Division I or any level. It could be JUCO.
I got one that, because I actually use this sometimes when I talk to other coaches. There was a kid that was like I don't know, he's like a 5'10" guard, and he wasn't highly recruited, and we ended up going Division I, and he ended up being the best player on the team, and you know, accomplished a lot of things there. I don't want to say all of what he accomplished, because otherwise it kind of gives it away. Maybe right, who it was, right. But accomplished a lot of things at this school. And so, coming up on his final year of recruiting or of playing at this Division I school, and the coach calls and he says, "Yeah, you know, we gotta replace so and so. I need another point guard and whatever." And I was like, "Coach, I got the perfect guy for you." And you know, high level player who has now gone on and done fantastic things at his school. But I thought this was going to be the perfect fit. And he's like 5'11", 6 foot, right? You know, right in there. Coach, you know, we need bigger guards. We need bigger guards than that. And I'm like, huh? the guy that you're trying to replace is 5'10" on a good day.
Right.
He's now a pro, you know, making a bunch of money and whatever. And I'm like, this guy, you know, won a stupid amount of games for you, helped you accomplish more than your school has ever accomplished. And you get I need bigger guards. Like, what? What are we talking about? And I use that story a lot because some of these, you know, coaches just get so caught up in
all the wrong stuff.
It gets caught up in the stuff that doesn't
matter.
Doesn't actually like lead to
winning. Doesn't impact winning.
No. I mean, if your system is so focused that you need between 6'3" and 6'4" at your point guard, then I don't know what to do. You know, it's like you've eliminated so many fantastic players that could really help you win games for something that's so minutely focused that at the end of the day, when it's crunch time, is the difference between 6'3" and 6 foot what wins you that game? And if that's the case, so then maybe you should run some different stuff, I guess. I don't know.
It's different too if you have preference. Like 6'3", if you have equal talent, 6'3" or 6 foot, it makes sense. Cool, take the 6'3".
Yeah.
But if you can't find anybody better and the 6 foot guard is here and you're looking at 6'3s and there's no one better than the 6 foot guard, take the 6 foot guard.
Well,
take
and
the player.
The little guard that he had, if that kid was 6'3", he'd have gone straight to the NBA. Like, this was a freaking 20-point a night guy at Division I. Right. Like, so nah, coach, there's not a 20-point a night guy that's 6'3", 6'4" at the point guard spot that's going to your mid-major program.
And if there was, he's not going to your school.
Yeah, like, no knock on your school coach, but like he's going wherever the heck he wants.
Yeah, he's going to play for Pastrana and Mike Boynton. That's where he's going.
Yeah. So it is funny, some of the conversations you have with guys where you're just like, just rubbing your temples, like, okay, all right, we can work through this. And not to say that what I have to say is smarter or right or whatever, but it's like you're literally like going objectively against what just really worked for you for the last 2 years for the sake of what, you've had a 6'3" point guard before and you didn't win with him. Right. And then you got the little guy and he was a baller and you won more games than you'd ever won. And now you got to go back to, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Questions that need answers that we'll never get answers for.
Right. 100%.
Speaking of doing this with your temple.
Yeah.
NCAA, the news of the week, the transfer waiver on Wednesday. All Division I transfers are immediately eligible and do not have to sit.
Yeah.
So great news for Division I transfers that were sitting. Yeah. However, they have excluded a population of people. So I'll let you touch on that and then just your overall kind of reaction to the rule.
Yeah, so we got this waiver that came in that says anybody that was chilling because their waiver hadn't been approved, doesn't matter. And these things are always funny to me. It's like it's December 15th or what, 16th, whatever, when they came out and said that this was going to be approved. What the hell took so long? The season started almost 4 weeks ago. And
as if, to interrupt real quick, as if we didn't have enough time.
Right. We knew this was coming.
All the pushbacks and we've had plenty of time.
We've all been paying at the grocery store between a piece of plexiglass for the last we weren't prepared for this. You couldn't have, we got to get everybody together. It's a Zoom meeting. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't the Fellowship of the Ring and you all are going to, Elftown or something. Like, it's on a Zoom call. Get on there, talk about it, figure it out. The delay of rules things is infuriating. And it's like, well, everybody's got whatever. This is your job.
Right.
If there's something that's desperately needed to move on with what we're doing, to make sure that kids are taken care of, and you can't do it in a timely fashion, go find something else to do. Because you had kids, you had some coaches that decided to, I'll just say it, they decided to act like children. Some ADs and some coaches that said, well, no, I'm not signing off on that because, even though they would have asked for the same waiver if it had been the other way. Right. Well,
let me just take this real quick, though. If you're an AD or a coach, you don't have to sign a waiver to take your next job, your next best opportunity. So,
and we're not even talking about a normal time here. Like, if you want to get all grumpy about a kid going during normal times, like whatever. But this is a pandemic. I mean, there were literally kids that were transferring back home, and in the middle of a pandemic to their home city, and the AD would not sign off on it, forcing the appeal waiver process. Like, what are we doing? And
the appeal waiver process, to those that don't know, which you probably do, but just in case you don't, means that kid doesn't get to play because the school is fighting against that kid being eligible immediately. And we're probably, for some programs, I think almost 10 games in now. So they've missed a third of their season.
For what?
And if they play 30 games, because you don't know how many games your team's going to play. So you probably miss maybe even half the season technically.
And it's so crazy too, because the ones that are pushing back and fighting and stuff, like, you don't think that doesn't bite you in the ass later on? Like, you're just giving people fodder to recruit against you. right? Like I'm not a fan of people that negative recruit, but like you're just kind of giving them lots of ammunition later on. Be like, hey, you ever got some kind of problem? You got whatever. Like, I don't know if these guys are going to take care of you because, you know, they just really don't seem to really care about what's best for the kids. So I don't know. It's super frustrating. But so the waiver's gone through, and in all of the genius of the NCAA, they said, yeah, all Division I players are immediately eligible. You know, I know we've been kicking this can down the road for 3 weeks now, but sure, let's do it. Oh, by the way, Division II guys, Division III guys, nah, like you still got to go through the waiver process. So there are literally still Division II to Division I transfers that are sitting there waiting on these appeals to be heard, these transfer waivers, this whatever. And I can't think of a logical reason why. Like what is it about them being at a lower level and transferring up that, you know, we needed to hurt them? I guess. I mean, that's all we're doing is we're just going out of our way to hurt kids, because it would have been real simple.
What's the difference though? That's the thing. Like, what is the difference?
Nothing. It's just
the click of a button, snap of a finger for you to say, hey, all transfers are eligible.
Who are you hurting? You know, who are we trying to protect here? Right. By doing that.
Who the NCAA, and I don't mind saying it, but they always say they're about the student athlete. Well, why not rule in the favor of all student athletes in this case?
Yeah, there are things that the NCAA does that are great, that are helpful, that are, you know, all that sort of thing. But it's infuriating sometimes because some of the simplest decisions are maybe some of the hardest for them to kind of get over the hump. And I don't know where that comes from. It'd be fascinating to be a fly on the wall in those meetings and hear when somebody says, well, we shouldn't do this because of whatever. And it's like, how disconnected do you have to be from what you're doing here to think that this is okay?
And you hit on it too, disconnected. I would probably go to bed and probably say most of the people have probably never been coaches. They may have been administrators, maybe, but probably neither one. So they are disconnected.
And probably not have worked with kids in any sort of capacity or something like that. I mean, there's such a bigger picture to most of this, right? Like so few of these guys are going to the NBA. So few of these guys are ever going to make a living as a pro, right? You know, there's just such a bigger picture to all of this. Now the waiver thing is interesting in general because, you know, I have mixed feelings about like where it's headed, you know, just the flat blanket, like everybody waiver. And I would have less mixed feelings about it if I didn't know like what was going to go on in the background. Right. You know, it's going to be interesting. It's going to take a few years for it to kind of settle itself out. I think there's going to be a bunch of coaches that are going to make a lot of really dumb mistakes in regards to, you know, really forcing this transfer situation into their rosters. There's some guys that are fantastic at it now.
Yep.
Do a lot of things the right way. Richie Riley, like he, you know, at the level he's at now, has really kind of cracked a lot of the code on you know, the right guys and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, his guys for the most part have sat, other than like Flowers. But Flowers is, you know, showing that he's a high level guy. Like that's great. But there are a lot of guys that aren't great at this with the transfer thing. You know.
Richie Riley, credit real quick before you keep going. He did that at the even lower level at Nichols.
Yeah.
Nichols State is just never won at a high level as far as championships consistently, and probably regarded as one of the worst jobs in the country, Division I, period, won a championship with that formula. And now Austin Clonch is doing an awesome job with a similar formula. So sorry, keep going. Yeah,
you know, there are guys that really know how to do it. Now, what'll be interesting though is like, you know, the whole idea of you're able to maybe get some better transfers when they had to sit because they didn't have as much value to the higher level guys.
Right.
And so, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to kind of just see this buffet out in front of them. They think, right. And they, oh, I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to grab that guy and I'm going to whatever. And it's not that easy, right? Like there's a lot, honestly, I think there's a lot more complications that get added into because you've got these elevated expectations from the players. Like, coach, I was playing 35 minutes a night at my last spot. Like, why am I not playing 35 minutes a night here?
Right.
Whereas maybe a more traditional recruit is like maybe understanding that they have to work their way into the lineups, and there's a lot of mistakes that are going to get made, and I think it'll take a few years to kind of work itself out. But what's also interesting about it is, I've talked to a lot of coaches lately at the mid-major and low major level where I say, hey, you should really, really be working on junior college right now, and they're just not. I said to somebody the other day, I said, we run verbal commits. Nathan runs verbal commits, and we have as much of a tune to what's happening in the recruiting world than anybody. How many junior college offers are you seeing right now? Like, people are just sitting on the sidelines, letting these fantastic players just sit there, and because they're all looking at transfers. And so I'm talking to a kind of a low plus, mid minus, whatever you want to call it, coach the other day. And I said, Coach, you've gotten some really good transfers in the past, but they've been kids that had to sit. So you took those transfers, they sat in your program for a year, learned, and then they were highly successful when they played for you. But they were also really good players that if they were immediately eligible, you ain't getting
them. You wouldn't have got them because people don't want to spend that scholarship on a player that's going to sit. They want immediate. So if that player is available immediately, well, now you're not getting that player. How do you think the waiver affects college players and the junior college level as a whole?
How do I think the waiver affects junior college players?
Yep.
It's going to be hard. We usually get about 400 somewhere, give or take, depends on the year. NJCAA, so not including Cali and the NWAC, junior college players going Division I. That number might be 250 this year. You might lose 30% of the junior college signings, and that's going to. That might end up benefiting, some of the lower levels, the Division IIs, because they're going to get poached. Some of the best players in Division II are really going to, transfer up now because they don't have to sit when this that rule. I think as of right now, they have to go through a waiver or whatever. But I think coming down the pike next year, it all points towards everybody's going to be able to transfer at least once without sitting. Even between levels. So, some Division II guys might get some of those Division I caliber players that just don't get the looks because of all these transfers and stuff like that. So, if you're a player that's borderline, or even if you're a solid Division I player, but you're just not getting the looks, or you're not in a place that you're not going to get the looks, or you don't have a staff that's going to help you get the looks, and all that sort of thing, like, you really have to sit down and think through, what your options are, what your opportunities are. You're gonna have to do a lot of self-evaluation of where do you want to be and how is the best way to get there. We may not have a JUCO season in a lot of places this year. We may not have one anywhere. It's totally up in the air right now, and the idea of everybody coming back to another year of junior college is just not realistic for a lot of reasons, because we still don't know what the NCAA is going to do with transfer credit requirements. If they do the right thing, they'll pass some legislation that says, hey, if you end up going back another year of junior college, we won't require that count on your eligibility for transfer credits, because let's say you've got a redshirt sophomore at junior college right now and we don't have a season. And then that kid needs to come back for another year. I mean, what are we going to do? Require 96 transferable hours? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
They did it last year for high school. They made the exception for the SAT standardized test. They need to make that definitely NJCAA. You need to make the right decision on academics, because
it's going to take the NJCAA pushing it with the NCAA, because the NCAA is not going to give a crap about it.
They have to push for it because it's a percentage of degree thing too. Like, if you're a 2-year or 2 full-time semester, you have a certain requirement. Then if you're a 3 or 4 full-time semester, it's 48 or whatever it may be. And then or the 60% towards the degree, it starts getting harder for those JC kids to figure out, okay, what classes are going to –
You can't get enough upper level hours most of the time. And a lot of Division I's cap the number of junior college transferable credits at 60.
Yep.
You know, there was a kid that we were helping out of Northwest Kansas Tech a few years ago, and he had a bunch of Division I offers, and he had a school that he wanted to go to, and he had actually been at a Division I program for 2 years. He was a redshirt sophomore and then gone to a year of junior college, and the school couldn't get enough transferable hours because they had kind of a limit on 4-year transferable hours. They had a limit on junior college stuff, what they wouldn't take, what they would take. This is like a 3.7 student who had taken a bunch of business classes at his Division I, and the school he was trying to go to, it's completely up to them. Right. And so he ended up going to another Division I that was able to get him in, but it gets complicated. And, I don't know, this is just kind of one of those years where, unfortunately, I wish it was different. I wish you could take visits. I wish you could, really explore all these different options, take in this entire recruiting process, all that sort of thing, and really get the full experience. And unfortunately, you're just not.
Right.
It sucks, but it is what it is. And so, I don't think people don't need to panic, but I do think you really need to think long and hard about what you have available to you, and, weigh those. This is a cost benefit thing, right? Like, what does it cost me if I say no and then I don't have a season, right? Like I was telling you a story about a player in a school and stuff, and the coaches were really pushing to not do anything, and when you really looked at this kid's situation, it's like the risk is massive,
right? And
it's for this kid's specific situation, and so you have to look at each individual situation and say, if I have something good now, what is the benefit of taking it, or what is the cost of not taking it, and really be comfortable with what those repercussions could be. So,
yeah, it's just such a different time, and I think most people I would think, are fairly open. But you talked about it even with the transfer waiver at the Division I level. Now you're talking about a JC kid who may have an opportunity, and I think the part that in adversity, we always see people's true colors. I hope more people will do the right thing, but for the young people, definitely you got to fight for what's best for you in these situations. And I think that is hard. Obviously, having resources like yourself to be able to reach out to helps. But yeah, definitely, it's just not a normal time.
And I think as a player, you really have to go out there and make sure that you are educated on what all of not only the options, but the requirements and all that sort of thing. Like the really good guys, like Hank Polona makes sure that every one of his players is in the right classes, is on track, is aware of what opportunities there are for him, is, everything runs like smooth, right? Because he empowers his kids, and he makes sure that they're aware of everything, and he gives them advice from a position of like actual knowing and care as well, right? Like, it's bigger than basketball. It's bigger than just a coach-player relationship, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case everywhere. And so as a player, like if you don't know all of those things, like how many hours do I need? Which classes do I need to be eligible for which level? Who's calling? Who's trying to get a hold of me? Who's trying to recruit me? Talk to your coaches about it. All those sorts of things. But you have to go out and make sure that you know all of that information, because there are going to be a lot of kids that during this whole thing are just going to kind of play out the year and be like, okay, now what?
Right.
And there's not going to be anything,
right?
That they either weren't prepared academically. They, we didn't have a season. Nobody was returning phone calls on recruitment, whatever it is. You have to kind of take the reins of your own, future with this sort of stuff. And if you've, you've got this, great relationship with your coach and all that sort of thing. You talk through it all and you address it like a family, and those sorts of things. Not everybody is that fortunate. And so it's, make sure that you really understand what is going on. And then that way you can be, as informed as possible, because like I said, this is not, we all want to kind of keep saying like, we're going to get through this year and, and it's fine. And we will get through this year.
Right.
But there's going to be a ripple effect from this year for the next 2, 3, maybe even 4 years.
Yeah.
Of just even the way that the classes kind of get goofed up, let alone any rule changes.
Absolutely. I think you touched on something too, to interrupt you. Education of knowing the facts, but if they don't make a waiver or don't make an academic exception, having another year in junior college doesn't benefit you the same way as if they do make the academic exception.
Right. Yeah.
So in itself is just something to really have an understanding of, because academically you could almost get to a place where you're actually get behind because you have to be in junior college another year. And now it hurts you going to the next level, even though
you can put yourself in a position where you can't go to another school.
Yeah. And your coach may sell it to you. I hope that they don't, but a coach may sell it to you like, hey, you get another year. We're going to be great. It's going to be our best team.
I mean, they already are.
For you.
That story I told you about, that coach is saying like, just come back another year. Okay, well, that would be year number 4 for that kid. So what, is he going to have 96 hours?
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
And he has a 4-year opportunity right now.
Yeah. Like a great one. And but the kid, you don't want him to be caught in the middle of this bickering or whatever between like what makes sense and what you're telling the kid or whatever. It sucks. And so that's where like a kid's really got to kind of understand things, because you can't get 96 hours to transfer when 72 of them or 60 of them or whatever have been junior college credits.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
No. You run out of classes to take.
Yeah. You don't have enough upper level hours, because that's the other thing is that, these schools say, well, if you're coming in year 3, you need 9 upper level credits.
Yep.
Well, where are you getting those if you're at junior college? Like there are some junior colleges you can take upper level credits at, not very many.
No.
And so, everybody's looking for those 300 hours and they're like, you don't have any 300 classes. So now what?
What about the high school kid right now that may be going to junior college or the 4-year level? Like, it feels like prep school is going to have another kind of wave of being a level that people are going to try to sneak into. And even the junior college level too, of, like you said, the classes. I think the good thing is the basketball level should be competitive at all levels, because you essentially have a senior class that's staying and a freshman class that's coming in. So you essentially have more good players by number. Right. So it should be a competitive, but there is very tricky navigation too, because there's going to be a lot of jumping in the portal. We talked about after the year that the portal's going to have more good players than it ever has. And players that are good are going to be looking around like, I don't know where to go. Yeah. Just like the JUCO players are going to be looking around like, I don't necessarily know. I need to may stay. So talk a little bit about that before we kind of wrap up the show. Just the whole navigation of this kind of overload of players and classes that has to kind of settle in over the next year.
What's going to end up happening is there's going to be a large number of kids that in the past have just kind of fumbled their way through their college basketball career. Sometimes in a bad way, sometimes in a good way. I mean, you got that kid that just never really got on the floor, but he was a great kid. He was the glue guy. He was a hard worker. And there's not going to be a lot of space for that guy anymore. And that sucks. Like, there's going to be kids that miss out on getting a degree because maybe the only way they think they have to get one is to be a basketball player. And coaches, the APR stuff has been put on hold. Division I coaches are not going to be as concerned about running dudes off, whether they wind up anywhere or not, as they have in the past. And there's just going to be a lot of things, kids that won't look at junior college opportunities and, I'm D1 or die or, whatever. And then they just wind up nowhere. And the more removed you are from your class, you sit out a year after high school or something, the further and further you get from being able to get in anywhere. And there's going to be a lot of that. The best players are going to really fill out these rosters, and the guys that maybe have been able to make a roster before, but just, weren't huge minute guys, like, I don't know where they go. There will be some trickle down, right?
Right.
Division I guys that were hanger-ons are going to be able to go to Division II, and, some NAI is going to benefit. If kids have the right mindset about it, where it's not, they don't look at going Division II or NAI or something as or even Division III if they can get academic money or whatever. They don't look at that as a failure. There will be kids that look at that as a failure, pass on all of it, and get nothing.
Right.
That could end up being the case, like the story that we talked about, where who knows, at the end of this year, maybe nothing ever happens and that's it.
Right.
Because clock keeps going. Right. Classes keep coming in behind you. Like it's a constant moving machine. And if you stop for 1 second, there's a good chance you just get smacked out of there.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. High school kids right now, like high school seniors that never ever thought about junior college, you better study up quick.
Yep.
Because there's going to be a ton of really good junior college opportunities out there for high level players that just don't quite have the right attention. It's not that you're not a good player,
right?
But if you're in a place that maybe is just more difficult to get eyeballs on, or doesn't historically have it, and we didn't have AAU for you to go blow up at and then go back to your high school or whatever. Now what? But there will be junior colleges sitting there waiting to take advantage of the fact that there's 4-year caliber players that just don't have anywhere to go. And the junior colleges will benefit from that if the kids understand like really what that opportunity is and what it looks like and what it can do for them.
Right. And the part too is when you get to that junior college, it's probably going to be harder than it would normally be because there's going to be an overload of good players there already. Yeah. And I think there are some junior colleges that have talked about that they're going to actually get more scholarships than they normally have. They're going to be able to keep the players that they have and be able to add additional. So that is a huge benefit to be able to go in, but you have to understand it's going to be harder than it's probably ever been. I got a comment here from Cabral Huff, who's an NAI head coach. Brandon, we have already benefited from 3 commits in 2021 class from high school players due to everything going on.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that,
and a coach like Cabral that goes out and works, really works hard. He's gonna go and he's gonna be looking at some of these commitments, going, "How did we get these guys?" And it's because he works in the middle of a time when a lot of people aren't for some reason. But there's a plethora of talent out there that just doesn't have as many opportunities as they used to have. And so that's what I keep telling all these guys that I talk to every day is like, hey, if you really, really go out there and hustle some of these spots, hustle some of these places that guys are just flying under the radar, like the high volume intensity, everybody's looking at them spots are always going to be that way.
Right.
But there are fantastic players that come from the less recognized areas.
Right.
Nobody's looking at. Right. Nobody's talking to,
and nobody's watching the film right now to kind of get to that. You know what I mean?
Like I'm literally watching high school film and junior college film of mid to borderline high major players that have no offers and nobody's calling.
Right.
Because they're just not at places that people pay attention to as much. Because you think about when there's somebody that's really off the beaten path, at a smaller school or out of the way town, a league that doesn't get as much attention or whatever, that traditionally, if they blow up and whatever, the reason being is because jamborees, exposure events, different things like that. AAU, if they're a high school kid
playing games, that helps.
Right. Like, and now even if they were a freshman in junior college, let's say, and they had a great season last year, coaches aren't going back and finding out who are those under the radar dudes that played somewhere last year. You can go watch your film. It's sitting right there on Synergy, and they're just not watching it.
Right.
Because typically those kids would then have played in a jamboree. They'd have played in an exposure event. They'd have played in something. And that's when the coach sees them and goes, oh crap. Yeah. I went back and looked. He was really good last year.
And even the weird thing too, right? There's no coaches can't go out and see people in person, which is different, but you have time on your hands, but you're not able to go with a kid on Monday and one JUCO and Tuesday and another one and Wednesday. You're not able to make those swings to see people in person, see practice, but you do still have the film, like you said.
Right.
Which,
well, and the biggest thing that I hear from everybody is, well, it's just really hard because we can't go see him. Well, that shit ain't changing. So
no, that's what I was about to say. The Synergy, the transfer portal, you're not going to be able to see any of those kids.
No.
And you're not going to be able to probably have them on campus.
No.
You're probably doing everything virtual. So this is the world we're living in now.
Get over it. You know, they're more willing to sit there and maybe take a transfer that didn't piss a drop the year before.
Because he checks the box of being a Division I player.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve coaches, share their stories, and spotlight their programs with our host, Brian Burton. A longtime successful college basketball coach, former championship collegiate point guard, husband, and father, Brian is now the Vice President of Rising Coaches Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance for men's basketball, an empowerment coach and founder of B3 Legacy Sports and the All Access Network. Sports broadcaster and host for All Access Coaches Corner and All Access Sports Media, Coach Burton is now using his successes, experiences, and connections to be a point guard in the sports industry at all levels, with a mission to help others to further their success. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
You pushed a button, didn't you?
It wasn't me this time. It wasn't me.
I don't know what happened. Anyways, long story short, do your homework.
Right.
Understand your own situation. Oh, we got a question. How do you feel about the?
So the question is, how do you feel about the thought that mid to low D1s, D2s, NAIs, JUCOs are now feeder programs, so to speak, for. And I heard one coach say, I think it was Mark Madsen, matter of fact, he said this on the phone, the Mad Dog, to me one day. He said, it's basically like we're the G League.
Yeah.
He's like, we're the G League, and that's the NBA, and kids will use our level to go to the next level. And there's some – and Johnny Estelle said this when he was on two shows. He said, now all that talk, the Division I talk, with coaches were saying about JUCO, well, now you guys are like JUCO. You have to make the best team every year.
Yeah.
No matter what situation is, there's going to be a lot of moving parts, but you got to put together the best team every year.
I want to throw this out there as kind of our last thing, because I've brought this up to Division II and low major programs where, as a head coach, it's difficult to wrap your head around the idea of selling to a player that they should come to you because if they do really well, they can go on to something else. Like, that's tough, right? Especially like if you're an older coach, like
ego-wise, it's really tough.
Oh, it's brutal, because you say, well, I want to recruit the best kid, and if they're a junior college kid with 2, I'm going to have them for 2. If they're a high school kid, I'm going to have them for 4, and that's what we do. And it's like, hey, it's not what it is anymore, right? Like, I didn't make the rules, you didn't make the rules,
right?
Players didn't make the rules, but you got to operate within the rules. So, I'm talking to a low major Division I coach, and he's recruiting this kid that is above his level, But because of everything that's going on, he's not getting a lot of recruitment. And everybody says, well, you are the level that recruits you. And like, I get that to a point, but like, this is definitely a kid that could probably walk into a mid-major program and be an impact guy right away, but he's just not getting recruited because nobody is. And so this low major program is trying to get him. I'm like, coach, just tell the kid that you come here.
This level as a platform, excel here, have a great year, we'll win, and you'll do well. It's almost the same conversation.
If you're really that good,
league.
If you're really that good and you show up here, and I'm a fifth, and you're a 15-10 guy, and because you think you're a high major player or the A10 Mountain West, whatever, come show it here, and trust me, you'll have no problem getting all the recruitment that you want. Hell, I'll pick up the phone for you.
Well, and the thing is, they can't stop you anyway now.
You might as well embrace it.
Yeah, you don't have to get a coach's permission anymore.
No, you might as well embrace it. Use it as a recruiting tool, because I know it goes against everything that you believe in, but it is what it is. They've made the rules. You have to operate within them. And so would you rather not get the kid for a year and have him help you win 20 games? Because the loyalty, look, we have all these words that we use in college basketball that define whether somebody is good or committed. We like to throw the word loyalty out there, but then you know what? When an AD comes knocking from a higher program, you're like, deuces. So you can use it to your advantage. You might as well. Why not?
It's very so. Zion Williamson. Okay, now we're in a Duke, Kentucky blue blood one and done conversation. If you could have Zion for a year, would you take him, or would you say, no, don't come?
You think Coach Cal gives a crap about whether or not, the one and dones that he has there? Do you think he gave a crap about if Boogie Cousins was going to come back for, all these, like, what? No, Coach Cal literally recruits kids that want to go to the NBA because he's like, I'm going to win a whole lot of ball games with a bunch of NBA players.
Right.
So as a low major coach, if you look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to recruit the holy heck out of a bunch of mid to high major dudes that maybe just aren't getting the attention that they get. And I say, look, come here, be my one and done monster.
Right.
We'll just do it again the next year. You know what? You're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to really Coach Cal works, right? Like, think of what you want about him. He works. He works really hard. And, I've known a kid that's gone through a Coach Cal recruiting process. It's crazy, like, how much that guy works. And so why not? You might.
There's twofold to it too. There's probably, because it's another level that's NBA and they don't compete against it, it probably feels uncomfortable to think this kid may go to a level and we may have to compete against that school. School, right? But at the same time, figure out how to have the best players and best team you can have. And it's the same conversation that they have to have with those one and dones. Or if you had a kid that could go pro, if he has an opportunity to go to a higher level that betters for his family, you will do the same with your family. So just treat it like after the season, we'll see what happens. And then if you feel like it's best for you to come back and you love this role and you feel like you can get where you want to go from here, let's do that. If not, so be it, and just understand it.
Junior college guys do it every year.
The climate's not going to change.
Junior college guys got to recruit 9, 10, 12, 13 new guys.
No doubt.
Every year. With them, an assistant making $5,000 and a volunteer that works at Piggly Wiggly. Like, they figure it out and they get it done every year. So I think you can probably figure it out. Again, it's not going to be comfortable. It's going to be completely outside of the normal constraints of where your brain is at. But they just changed the game. So those who adapt and figure it out are gonna be more successful.
What's like social media? Like there was a time period where people didn't want to participate in social media. Now every program they hire people, not only just the SID staff and the athletic staff, they're hiring people within programs because that's an important part of a program. So adapting with the times is important, and this is a new adaptation to the times.
Yep, 100%.
Well,
there it is. I think we solved all the world's problems.
Yeah, just like that. So we are wrapping up. Happy holidays, everyone. This is the schedule for us. We will not be here next Friday because I think you guys know what it is. Happens to be a holiday. Hope you have a great one. And then the following Friday, we're also going to not be here. But I'm sure we'll have plenty of replay content you can check out on YouTube at All Access Network. Brandon will still have amazing tweets going out that will keep you entertained. That won't be in question. All right. So, but you know where to find us. We'll still have great content out, and enjoy your holiday. And let BG say some last words, and be safe.
Appreciate everybody checking it out. My friend, we'll see you soon. Either on here, probably, I guess, on a screen as opposed. I mean, you're an hour away, and it's like it might as well be 10 hours away.
I might as well live in the other part of the world.
So we'll figure it out, everybody.
No doubt. We'll JUCO it up until we do.
Yep.
Enjoy the holidays. Be safe, everyone. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.